Welcome to our 68th monthly Zoom presentation. We can all be very proud of the amazing library of recordings we are building. It's truly a testament to the diversity of the roadside. I'm Brian Gallagher, the president of the Society for Commercial Archaeology, and I'm proud to be your host for tonight's presentation. Welcome to all our guests and any new people we have with us. We're happy you took the time to watch an SCA presentation, and I hope you enjoy the show. And for those watching the recording of this episode of the SCA's monthly presentations who is not a member of the SCA, we earnestly ask you to consider joining. Funding for the various activities of the SCA comes almost exclusively from our membership. Just visit our website at www.sca-roadside.org and follow the links. Now I have the pleasure of introducing this month's presenter. Will Durham is here tonight to tell us about the Light Circus Neon Museum. Will Durham is a Reno native and preserver of vintage neon signs throughout Nevada and beyond. Will is the creative force behind the Light Circus Neon Museum and spearheaded a successful legislative campaign to make neon the official element of the state of Nevada. Reno and Nevada's history is unique, and much of it has been expressed through the bold, beautiful glow of neon. The Light Circus will preserve the city's past, celebrating the craftsmanship, design, and visual identity that shaped the post-war boom era. Let's join Will as he shares his vision of creating a new museum in downtown Reno, featuring his vast collection of Reno and Nevada's best neon signs. Will, would you start sharing your screen and let us have your presentation?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'll share the screen in just a second, if that's all right. I'm really excited to be speaking with SCA today. It was for years I thought that it would be, that I thought that the work that we were doing was something that would be appreciated by the group, and and so this is a real treat to be able to present to you today. So I'll start sharing my screen. Let's see. Okay. So I started the Nevada Neon Project almost 30 years ago. And in that time, we've preserved almost 200 signs from all over Nevada, some in California, one in Mexico, and some other places. We rescue really important signs that need to be saved. And so obviously, Nevada is kind of our focal point. But if there isn't another sign that needs to be saved, we are open to doing that. A lot of people have asked me, how did this all start? And there's a few things that I think about. Um, when I was a kid, um, we had some friends that owned some casinos in downtown Reno, and so driving down on Virginia Street, we really got to see, a real amazing kind of framework of these facades that really beckoned people in mainly through neon. And at that time, I had insomnia, and so I had a really hard time getting to sleep. And so um, I would let me back up, sorry, just a little bit. So I used to share a room with my brother, and so I used to talk his ear off. And so he would get fed up with my silly questions, and so he moved down to the basement of our house. And so that kind of I didn't like to be alone, and so I developed, a bit of a case of insomnia. And so I hated to be the last person that was awake. And so thinking about downtown Reno, I was able to see kind of the glow of the neon from my room. And so it was actually something that helped me get to sleep, being able to look out and see that neon and just knowing that I wasn't the last person awake. And so, but that's kind of, I think, how the spark for neon and the love for neon was planted. But then there were other things. So this book was something that my mom read to me. And this was kind of my first exposure to museums. And so it was the idea of this was very exciting, being able to display these great things for people to see. And and I think that that always kind of, planted a seed that when you discover something that you would like to share with people, that museums were um, a great way to do this. And so we don't quite have everything in the whole wide world, but we do have a little segment of Nevada that we think is worth sharing. So this didn't start out as a real as a grand kind of preservation effort. I lived in a house with a bunch of friends, and I had this giant sunroom as my bedroom. And so I wanted something cool to kind of help fill out this room. I'd created a little bit of a lounge. And I remember seeing uh, some dilapidated motels that were closing on 4th Street in Reno, the old Highway 40. And so I figured out a way. I approached an owner of a motel that was closing, and I was able to acquire the signs from the Zephyr Motel. And this is one of them, this diving swimmer. Um, I just thought she was great. I thought the design was cool. I liked the way it had aged, but it wasn't, I didn't realize that it was something that was important and worth saving. And this was a time in Nevada of great change, and these legendary properties were closing and all over the state. And I thought that shouldn't someone be preserving these signs? They mean something to the city and the state. That neon. When you thought of Nevada, you always were shown neon in movies and television, and it was kind of what people thought of when they thought of Nevada. And so I thought, shouldn't someone be preserving this stuff? And then I realized that. That person was me. That if I wanted to preserve this stuff preserved, that I needed to do it, that I needed to take the lead to do this. And so over the years, I just did, everything humanly possible just to save the neon, that I didn't necessarily have a grand plan for it, but I just realized um, that it needed to be saved now. It wasn't something that we could do later. And so this is the Sahara in Las Vegas. I just love the typography of this. It's just, just so evocative and striking of a certain area of that era of that time. Um, this was a very difficult one. I almost got heat stroke and attacked by some sickly crows, just like in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. But and also when we were going to load the signs, the sign company had promised me that they would help load them into the truck that I had, but they had to leave for a brief moment, and in that time, um, the workers at the Sahara actually started striking. They started a picket line, and I was already in the property, and I realized that the sign company was not coming back, and so I had to load these in a truck by myself. They're 10 feet tall, very delicate and awkward. But luckily, I was able to get them in there with no neon lost. This is another one that's more recent, a porcelain sign from maybe late 40s, early 50s, the Rancho Sierra Motel in Reno. And this is the Riviera in Las Vegas. This R is 17 feet tall. Luckily, we were able to kind of take it apart in sections to preserve it. It was really exciting. And a bit sad to be at the Riviera when the neon finally went off. Um, so preserving these signs is it's a very hard process. These signs are oftentimes extremely heavy. The neon is delicate, they're awkward, they're hard to move, and a lot of times you have to use like cranes, sometimes multiple cranes to be able to take these down. And I don't have a lot of money to do this. For at least a good portion of the time when I've been doing this, I was a teacher, and so that teacher money goes pretty far. But preserving these signs was just it was just really difficult. And there were a lot of times when I would say, like, why do I do this? And other people, when I first started doing this, so many people, including the sign companies, were saying, why are you doing this? And I wasn't quite sure at some times, but I just felt that it was really important. And to be honest, it was something that I had to do. I couldn't not do it. Um, but I know that you guys would like to see a lot of beautiful neon signs, and I would like to show you some of the ones that we've preserved. Um, this is one from the Holiday Hotel in Reno. This is you can't really see the porcelain on this, but beautiful red and blue porcelain, red, white, and blue porcelain. It's just a fun sign. This is a very famous sign. This is from the Mapes Hotel in Reno. This was one of the most important properties. It was an Art Deco style building, and it just had a lot of history. When The Misfits was being filmed in Reno, in and around the area, this was the kind of staging area where Marilyn Monroe stayed. When Frank Sinatra's son was kidnapped, uh, he was holed up here at the Mapes, working with the FBI to deal with the kidnappers to release his son. But this sign it's a perfect use of neon. The way their shapes come together forms the M for the word Mapes. But this sign is just something that we get a lot of pleasure from. The Du Grenier was a coffee shop in Reno that was light years ahead of its time before there were really any coffee shops. And this is actually, for the people that live in Reno, this may be the most popular sign because everybody had memories from the Du Grenier. El Cholo was a sign from Las Vegas in a place called the Naked City. Um, I remember when I first went to preserve this sign, there was no neon museum in Las Vegas. I've been doing this longer than there's been a neon museum. And when I found the owner of this sign, I called, and and I could tell it was a very elderly woman that I was speaking to. And um, so I explained everything about why I'm preserving these signs, why I think they're important. And she said, I think I think that's a great plan, but you'll have to talk to my mother. And her mother was in her late 90s. Her name was Rose Whiteside, and she was a former Harvey girl. And so I would go over to their house and I would explain, what I was doing. This happened a few times, and I realized that they really just liked the company. And so I was happy to spend time with them, and they allowed me to preserve this beautiful sign. And this is only the small part of the sign. There was a tower that said cafe under this, and so the entire sign was 29 feet tall. We will just have the small portion of the sign in our museum, only 9 feet tall. The heart of town. This is a beautiful mix of lots of different sign techniques. You have porcelain enamel, you have, regular painted um, painted metal, you have backlit plastic, you have animated twinkling bulbs, and then also beautiful ruby red neon. And this sign is massive. It's 14 by 14, and we are hoping to fit this in the museum. Nevada Club, this is Bucky Buckaroo, designed by Lou Heimers. This is probably, in my opinion, the best Nevada neon sign that there is. Just and a great one for the museum too. Bucky is waving and greeting people to the museum. I just love this. Alan Hess, the architectural historian, described this as one of the greatest neon signs ever constructed, and I happen to agree with him. And this is an EPCO sign. You can see the little badge on the bottom there, and this is also porcelain, and so it looks pretty much brand new. The Buffalo Bar, this is a sign that there were certain signs that just could not be lost, that was so important to be preserved and to stay in Nevada. And this was one of them. And so when I knew that it was going to be taken down, uh, I would just make sure that nothing was going to happen. And when I finally spoke with the owners to make the decision, they had told me that they were going to open a new business, and they were going to blow this sign up as a publicity stunt. And I realized that that was such a great idea to have, mercury, glass, sheet metal blasted, and that would be just a wonderful idea for a grand opening. But I think that was actually just a ploy to get me to spend a little bit more money on the sign, and I had to, because this sign could not be lost. And I just love the cocktail glass kind of pouring out the shape of the buffalo. This is one of my absolute favorites. A sad part about this sign is that it will not be in the museum because it can't fit through the door. It is 8 feet by 8 feet, and so we cannot get it through the doors. So unfortunately, um, that will not be there at this point. Maybe if we expand the museum and make bigger doors. The Silver Spur, this is the first sign that I ever tried to preserve. This was actually right next door to the Zephyr Motel. Um, the owner at the time uh, was not interested in selling. I was able to make a deal for this sign probably about 25 years or 24 years later. And the developer, when they were going to tear the property down, uh, they I was able to make a deal with it. And before I could take it down, it was actually stolen. The sign was actually stolen, and that was very disappointing. That I drove by on my daughter's birthday on the way to get a cake, and I saw that the sign was gone. Luckily, a reporter friend of mine, um, he wrote an article, and it was on the front page of the paper above the fold. And the sign was actually returned by 8 o'clock the next morning, because he had described it as someone looting the property. So I know that someone, maybe the person who took it, their wife was like, "I just read an article about a sign being looted. Is that the one that's in our garage?" Uh, but we were able to get the sign back, so all's well. And I like the story now too. We don't just preserve signs that are mid-century or older. We do save some signs that are newer because of the design of the signs, but also the stories that they tell. This sign is from Wolfgang Puck's Spago in Las Vegas, and Wolfgang Puck said that he was going to open a Spago at the Forum Shops at Caesar's Palace, and people thought that he was crazy um, to open a to open one of his restaurants in a mall in Las Vegas. Um, but history would actually be on his side, and this was the start of kind of the celebrity dining experience in Las Vegas. Now, every celebrity chef in the world has a restaurant in Las Vegas, and the culinary scene has been greatly elevated. So this was the start of it. Society, I just love that script. It was originally from a dry cleaner, and it was repurposed in a bar before we got it. Dunseith key. This looks like a nice, cute little key that you could have in your den, but it's actually giant. It's 9 feet tall. We were able to. It had moved several locations, but we were able to acquire this sign because it wouldn't fit in the new shop, the new Dunseith key shop. And this business is almost 100 years old, so they're still in business. This is an animated gambler sign from Wells, Nevada. It's, it's actually an EPCO sign too. It's got the Xeon badge on the bottom, a very different one, but very cool sign. I love his spirit. He's so happy just to be throwing his money at this one-armed bandit. The Riviera, there's this sign lit up. This was such a great facade, one of the last kind of neon spectacles in Las Vegas. Laughing Planet, again, this is a modern sign, but just the design has, this is why you make neon signs. This is just so fun, happy. Neon should make people happy, make them smile. Juicies. I just love this kind of 80s style typography. This was a hamburger place. Um, and it's as if the neon was written in ketchup and mustard. I've just loved this sign. The Longhorn Motel, this was in Reno, another porcelain sign. This sign is such a great mid-century sign. This is from the Biltmore in Lake Tahoe. And so a few years ago, we were able to preserve all the signs from the property. And this is one that has that Lake Tahoe feel, and with the trees and the lake, it's a really striking sign when it's lit. The Tropicana in Las Vegas, this sign actually is a neon sign. It is backlit neon. I wish it was exposed, but we also preserve signs again for the history and the stories that they tell. This is a sign that isn't from Nevada, but this is from Van Ness Auto. And again, this is one of those signs that just makes you smile. And he makes us happy. And so we're going to be talking a little bit more about him in a bit. But one of the things is he was the host at a show we had earlier, and he's so welcoming with his big smile and his hand out, welcoming you. But then if you notice, his other hand is actually, he's got his fingers crossed. So it makes you kind of wonder, what does he have in store for you inside this exhibition? This is another sign that's from Los Angeles. And, when I lived in Los Angeles, I worked in the film industry, and I knew of, maybe not every single sign like I do in Nevada, but in Los Angeles, I felt, the really great, figurative signs, the animated ones, the ones like maybe Cantor's, or the Frolic Room. I knew of kind of the classics. And I was driving on Sunset Boulevard one day, and I saw this sign at a place called Stinker's Truck Stop. And I just pulled over immediately and tried to photograph it the best I could. And every time I was in the area, I would always go back and photograph it with different cameras just to make sure that I was able to capture it, because you don't find new animated signs and figurative signs. This sign was actually constructed by Paul Greenstein. He did an amazing job, and it was also kind of based on some truck stops that were in the West, including Nevada, called the Stinker Truck Stop. So it's kind of based on that. The sign disappeared a year and a half after I first saw it. And luckily I was able to track it down, and we were able to preserve this. This guy just makes people happy. And glad to have him part of or it's probably a girl thing actually. Glad to have her as part of the collection. Piccolos, this was from Omaha, Nebraska. This is a sign. This was a steakhouse that Warren Buffett frequented. We had heard that this place was closing, and I worked with the owners for years to be able to preserve it when it was coming down. We always like to keep signs in place, but when they do come down, we would like to give them a home. And at the time, there was no preservation effort attempting to save it in the area. And so we drove across country. Eric Linksweiler from Mona and we drove across the country with the Piccolo's signs in a giant truck. So one of the things that we don't want neon to become a dead art. And there's some things that we're doing to make sure that neon stays around. And so we've started our Reanimator series, where we've started constructing some of the signs that have been lost in Nevada, and ones that we would like to see again, because we want to keep the tradition of neon sign making alive. This was from the Flying Pig Barbecue in Winnemucca. The owner really, he had created a 10-foot version of this sign that actually was on the cover of Neon Nevada. And he really wanted his legacy to continue. This sign had been destroyed long ago, and he wanted to, continue the legacy of the business. And so we had this sign made by Golden West signs that built the first one. And so this is just another flying. He's very happy for a pig that may have just met his maker. This is Vegas Vic. Of course, this sign is still up in Las Vegas. I was lucky enough to meet the man that designed the neon for this. His name's Pat Denner. I was able to meet him shortly before he passed away, and he was such a kind man. He considered himself one of the first graffiti artists because he wrote on trains in the 30s. And he also designed the illustration for Colonel Sanders. So two very enduring American icons. He did the a lot of the graphic work for. And so I've always loved this sign. And when Pat Denner passed, his family gave me the original drawings of Vegas Vic. And so we built a 3/4 scale version of his head that we are quite proud of. Roger Daniels did the neon for this. Um, Dwight McCutta, he's a Nevada sign painter. He did the paint work, and this was based off shop drawings where we built a pattern. Brett Logan did the pattern. This is another one that we wanted to recreate. This was we'd never seen this in person. We'd only seen this in a montage in a movie set in the 40s or early 50s. And so this is a an illustration done by Robert Caples that he was actually known for his he did I think graphite illustrations of Native Americans. That's what he was really famous for. So the goal never, it was never really, initially, it wasn't to start a museum. But the longer we did this, we recognized that the things that we were collecting were very important to Nevada history. And sometimes, or a lot of times, I would have been called a collector, and in kind of a derogatory way, as if I was uh, collecting these things and hoarding them away for myself, which wasn't the case. This was always a very long-term project, um, and that I knew that it would take a long time to create something important. And we didn't want to do things halfway. We turned down a lot of opportunities that just weren't right for the science. So this was a show in 2012 and 2013 at the Nevada Museum of Art. It was called The Light Circus, The Art of Nevada Neon. And it was really great because it was like a proof of concept to see, if this really held up, if this could really keep people's attention in a museum setting. And so we had about 15 signs in the gallery here and another one in the lobby. And it was a great show. I loved being able to go and see all these signs together and to see how they made people happy. People had really great memories from these places. People would tell me about, proposing to their wife in front of this sign at the Holiday Hotel. And so it was a great feeling to be able to see these together. But in a way, it was also kind of frustrating because like these signs are huge and they're awkward, and you need just the right space to house them and to also be able to cater to the people to come see them. We need them, we need tourists to be able to come and enjoy this to keep it open. Um, there's the Sahara sign that you saw taken down. Oh, and actually you saw the Nevada Club on the second slide. This was on the facade. We didn't light the Sahara because one of the sign people said, if we put the bulbs in there and lit this, people would just walking by, they'd get sunburned. And so also the power that we used in this exhibit was pretty crazy. The Nevada, those are incandescent bulbs, and it was beautiful, but they had to rewire the museum just to showcase it. And this is actually a friend of mine. They were actually next door neighbors, and that's my daughter's friend, Brooklyn. So I wanted to, I don't want neon to be just an element of Nevada's past, that it's important to Nevada. That neon means more to Nevada, in my opinion, than any other state. Because when neon started to fade in other places in the late 50s or early 60s, it was as if Nevada didn't get the memo. And we started building signs that were, 300 feet tall with 10 miles of neon on them. And this neon did not go away in Nevada. There were times when it started to fade, but it came right back. And a lot of the cities in Nevada were kind of lost highways, and they weren't, you know, modernized, and so the neon stayed. But throughout kind of our history, there's always been kind of a, at times when neon is in favor and people really think neon's great, and then it would kind of go out of style. And then there was also the idea that neon is only Las Vegas, that Las Vegas is the only neon in Nevada. And that is patently untrue. Reno for the first part of the 20th century was bigger than Las Vegas. We were the gaming capital. We were the entertainment capital. So Reno had a great deal of neon, but neon was all over the state too, in Elko, the Owl Club in Battle Mountain, Carson City, Carlin, all over the state, there was great neon signs. You'd drive through this really dark desert and then you'd come up to Hawthorne and see the beautiful glow of neon. And so I wanted to do something to help make sure that neon did not fade away in Nevada. So at the time, I was a teacher, and I got the idea that it'd be really cool to work with the students to propose a bill that would make neon one of our state symbols. I thought it would be a great civics lesson, and a way for the kids to kind of be able to take pride in their state and have a project that was all their own. So we found someone to sponsor the bill, Sarah Peters. And so as a class, we wrote the bill. And being in Carson City, which is the state capital, we were able to, our principal loved the idea and she gave us permission to go with the project. And so we were able to take groups of students to the legislature and to lobby for the bill. We'd be walking around the building and we'd be making appointments and we'd run into senators or assembly members and we would pitch this idea of why neon should be a state symbol. When you think of the other state symbols, that this was something that was actually ubiquitous in Nevada and it actually, meant something to the image of the state. When people thought of Nevada, neon was always a part of it for a very long time. So we methodically we wrote out the names of all the senators and assembly members, their political affiliation, whether or not they were in the committees that we were presenting in, and we worked really hard we had a section to see if they were committed to our bill, if they had agreed to support us. And so when this finally went to the assembly, we presented in the assembly, the hearings. And so when it finally went to a vote on the assembly floor, I wanted to take a picture of the sign as it was approved. And so when they started the votes, all the red no's just started piling up. There was this huge amount of red no's. And so I just started thinking, okay, I don't want this. I don't care if it's unanimous anymore, but just please pass. And I just kept seeing the no's just piling up and piling up. And then they started switching back to yes. And then it actually did pass unanimously. And they had just done that as a practical joke to the assembly member that sponsored the bill because it was her first bill. And so it was a very scary moment, but the bill passed the assembly unanimously and it passed the Senate unanimously. And then it was signed into law by Governor Sisolak. And so neon is now one of our official state symbols. And we're hoping that this will encourage people that are, opening businesses to consider using neon because it is something that means something to the state. So And this is Governor Sisolak signing the bill. This was actually pretty, there was a couple of funny things about this is that there was a girl in a lot of the pictures. She didn't want to go and she had to wear a dress she didn't like. So in all the pictures, uh, all the kids are smiling except for one who's pouting and doing her best to show that she's not happy. You can't really see it in this picture, but um, so this again, back to our this is our host from Van Ness Auto. But when we were developing, we started coming up with the Light Circus Neon Museum, I realized that this is our perfect ringmaster. This is the ringmaster for the Light Circus Neon Museum. And so after we had the show at the Nevada Museum of Art, we'd shown signs in a lot of different places. We'd brought signs to Museum of Neon Art for Neon Speaks. We had shown at the National Automobile Museum, the Sparks Heritage Museum, but the goal was always to have a permanent presence and to have, not the entire collection, but to have these signs out and for the people to enjoy them. Um, this year we were lucky enough to find a location. It's a location we've known about, but working with the city of Reno in order to have a location. So we found a location. This is the National Bowling Stadium. This was actually some of the movie Kingpin was actually filmed here. Up on the fourth floor, there's a giant, that's where they have these huge tournaments. There's actually a tournament that's going to happen in March. And we are on a section of the bottom floor, right on the corner of University and 4th Street, which was the old Lincoln Highway. It's a wonderful location. We have about 7,500 square feet with 14-foot ceilings. And so is it big enough for all of the collection? It isn't. But we are able to have a great deal of signs in this space. And so I kind of want to tell you what the museum is going to be. So we're going to have rotating exhibits. We have enough signs to, keep it fresh, bring in new signs. Kind of deciding which signs would be in the museum at the start was tough because there's like, oh, well, that one would be such a great sign. And so we do have a lot to keep the museum exciting and dynamic and fun for locals to come back to. We're also going to have a lot of programming that has to do with Nevada in pop culture, in large part in the 20th century. We're going to be showing movies. See this big dome right there? There's actually the 168 seat movie theater in there. I believe that at one time it was IMAX. It isn't now, but we want to show movies that have to do with that were filmed in Nevada or have to do with Nevada. I've worked on a few of them. We want to show movies like Casino, The Cooler, the Sister Act, which was filmed in Reno and features a lot of our signs. This is also going to be an event space. So we've designed the space, and I'm going to show you some elements that can make it a little bit modular to be able to reconfigure the space when we have events like weddings, corporate events, holiday parties, things like that. So the space before was the Bowling Hall of Fame. I think the National Bowling Hall of Fame. And so there's these mosaic bowling ball and bowling pin, which are really cool. They're actually still in the lobby. But this was the museum. It was very, very, it showed its age. The carpet was this brown and tan. The walls were tan and maroon and black, and it's just very dated. And uh, so this is the spot that we were taking over. So, Bill, should we take a question now or should we wait till the end, Brian?
Oh, no, let's wait to the end. Will,
Okay,
so just keep going, and you have about another 10 minutes or so if you can fit it all into there.
perfect. So, so this was the space, and then this is when it was starting to be cleared out. Um, And so the thing about it is that Grover started out, that everything in the whole wide world museum, but he never told me um, how hard it would be to start a neon museum with almost no money and very little time. And so, but we have this amazing opportunity because we're right downtown and there's also these bowling tournaments within the building. There's one that starts in March where we will be getting about 80 to 90,000 people coming through over 120-day period. And so there's a real opportunity to, be able to capture some of those people and share a museum with them, which makes our project more viable. So I'm going to go through some pictures and show you kind of when I was thinking about this presentation, thinking about, uh, preservation, this group and being, preservation minded and appreciating these important things, I thought it was a really cool opportunity to be able to speak to you now while we're in the process. We're in the middle of this. I'm working 7 days a week, 12 to 16 hours a day, like nonstop on this. And so I'm not burned out yet. I'm still having a lot of fun, but we're in the middle of this. We're in the middle of, that we're not here. We're not in an empty space with the old carpet. The carpet's been um, redone. We wanted a polished concrete floor, but the floor underneath here was really bad, and we got an estimate for $200,000, and it would have looked really ugly. So we went with some mid-century style carpeting. So I'm going to go through and show you some of the pictures of what we're doing. So this is my friend Annie, who has helped me preserve so many different signs, and she came through and she was helping us. She was helping us uh, paint over these ugly tan colors. We did have to go over this one twice because at certain angles you could still see the light circuses coming, which isn't a bad thing. But and maybe you still can from certain angles, but we just thought this was a fun way to break in the space. So I've had to recruit a lot of friends and family to help. This is my father on the left. He's, his name's Griff, and he's been an amazing supporter of the project. My friend Billy, who is a production designer, he came down from Oregon to help me work for a week or so. We're building these islands. I'm going to explain more about these islands. It has to do with the modular element. Um, these are the islands, and these are very large. They're 10 feet in diameter, and there's a wall that we're building in the middle of them so that we can showcase a sign on either side. These are built on heavy-duty casters, so we are able to. They will be in the body of the museum, and we have them there to create kind of different experiences and different ways to explore the museum, different paths, um, just different ways to see the signs. But when we do have an event, we're able to move these to a section of the museum where they're out of the way so we can open it up for more people. Bringing the signs to the museum is always an exciting part of it. We're not quite ready to install, but we're bringing them to the museum to start getting them ready. There's always a lot of work. There's cleaning. This is my dad. We've had really, really good weather while we've been doing this. We haven't had a lot of snow, which really would have complicated things. But we did have a really cold rain shower when we were bringing some signs in, and so my dad's always been a trooper. He's 84 years old, and he is he's helping to make this happen. There's Vegas Vic coming to the museum. And so there's just a lot of work to be done. There's some signs that we've gotten that the neon was broken and needed to be replaced, and so we've been making patterns. This is Garrett. He is Roger Daniels, the man that did the neon for Vegas Vic. He's helping me uh, get these signs ready to go. He's making neon patterns. Um, that put my daughter to work helping to clean the signs. These signs have been outside and they accumulate some aging, and so here she is cleaning. This is Ken Hines from Color of Neon doing creating some new glass for the Rancho Sierra Motel. That was one of the ones that we showed you that was coming off the building. Ken is the only neon commercial neon shop in town. There's another neon vendor, Jeff Johnson, but Ken and Color of Neon is the only neon shop left in Reno, and that's a really sad thing. And so, hopefully, through our project, we will encourage some people to take up the mantle and to learn this art and craft, which takes a long time. But hopefully, we can keep it alive, and we can make sure that we can still have neon in the future. And again, this is my dad. For the show at the Nevada Museum of Art, he cleaned off a lot of the porcelain signs, and so that's kind of his expertise. And so he's got his soft scrub cleaning the silver spur. So this is a project, that just could not be done without the help of others. So that's basically the presentation. We have, I'm going to show you a couple signs or a couple slides coming up that are ways to, if you are interested in supporting us, becoming a member or becoming a sponsor or sponsoring a sign. This takes you to our founding membership page. There's different benefits for different members, different tiers of membership. I think this takes you just to the general membership page. There are other memberships other than founding members. There's couples, there's individual memberships, and I think this might be posted in the chat, I'm hoping. This is our individual membership, couples membership, and this is to sponsor a sign. If there's there's a lot of signs that will take a great deal of work to have ready to show. But if this is something that interests you, that you are able to sponsor a sign at any sort of denomination, and if there was something special that you wanted to do, we can work out a program like that. Thank you so much for listening to my talk, and I would love to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, Will, that was just remarkable. It's a truly inspiring story about, one person, yourself, but of course you have lots and lots of help, taking on something that, is essential and just running with it and doing it. And I mean, involving your class, those pictures were so adorable of your class. It looked like what, grade 7, grade 6, grade 8, maybe?
5th and 6th grade, yeah.
5th and 6th grade. These students not only getting a civics lesson, but being able to participate in something as meaningful and interesting and even historical as that. So all power to you, and God bless your dad. Oh my God. How old did you say he was? 82?
84.
84. And he's still out there slugging around neon signs.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't be able to tell. I sometimes have to remember. I'm like, oh yeah, he's 84. Because moving these signs and dealing with these signs is awful. And so I have to remember, I'm like, oh yeah, he's 84 years old, but he's my biggest supporter, and grateful to have his support.
Well, it's really a remarkable story, and you have dozens and dozens and dozens of comments here, most of which are saying what a wonderful job you're doing and keep up the good work. But we also do have, and I'll pass all those on to you, of course, but we also do have some questions for you. And I'm going to start with Bill, who had his hand up. Bill, if you're there, I've just unmuted you, or you can unmute if you like, if you had a question to ask. Bill? Oh, okay. Well, maybe you can come in a bit later if you do have a question. But let's get to, turned off my video. Let's get to some of the questions. So Nancy Sturm, who is past president of the SCA, has had a lot of questions. Actually, Nancy, I don't know, do you want to ask him some of your questions directly too? Let me see, I can get you unmuted here. Where are we? Did you want to ask Will some questions, Nancy?
Well,
I would
thank
just,
you. Will,
there you go.
congratulations on your work. I did get some answers from your colleague Annie. I was curious about when the first sign you collected was, and that period you were talking about. It was 1996. Annie said. I will say that SCA had a terrific conference in Reno. I believe. I honestly can't recall whether it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, but I was curious as I was listening to you about why we didn't visit your museum, but now I understand why. It's this personal collection, and I guess I'm wondering at this point how many signs have you collected? Um, yeah, how many signs have you collected? Do you own now? I guess I should say.
So just about 200. And some of
Wow.
those signs are massive. And those aren't like I don't consider like one letter of a sign being a sign. So I have about 200 like signs. So the Sahara would be one sign. And so about 200 different signs.
And so you'll be storing these off-site at a warehouse, I guess is where you keep them now or something, and then you'll rotate from the warehouse.
Yeah, so we have some semi trailers, storage units, and we bought a property where we're building a steel building, and just to be able to work on them offsite. You know, when signs come down, we need a place for them to land. Sometimes they're massive, and so we have a piece of property where we would be able to accommodate any sign that comes down. And then, so because a lot of times that would be a problem, like where are we going to bring this? And so now we have
Right.
that as well.
And just my final question, I guess you have a board of directors and that sort of thing at this point.
So we were so initially Nevada Neon Project was a nonprofit, and so the we are not a nonprofit right now because I did not want to take donations for a location that I cannot, that I do not have full control over. We don't own this building. We have a lease, but I didn't want to accept donations. When eventually I want this museum to outlive all of us, and so eventually we will become a nonprofit, but I didn't want to take donations from people um, in the event that I can't promise how long we will be there in
I
this
see.
location. So I want to accept donations when I know that what we will be doing is as permanent as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nancy. We have a bunch of questions. Shelley Morris asks, are all the signs going to be displayed with their lights on in the museum?
Yes. So every sign that we have in the museum will be lit. There's a couple signs that don't have neon, just a couple that we just love and we want to have in there, but we will have everything illuminated. Our goal is to have more signs lit up in the museum than are lit up in the Las Vegas Neon Museum Boneyard. Um, when we had the show at the Nevada Museum of Art, we had some giant signs in there and we didn't light them up entirely just because of power requirements and otherwise. And that really upset people. They're like, why is only one letter lit? And so with this, we're going to make sure that everything is lit. And that's the best way that's the magic of neon is with them all lit up.
Now, I have a question before we get back to the viewers' questions. I forgot one as well, and you just twigged on it there. Maybe this is a little sensitive topic. If you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But there's lots of other neon museums out there. For example, American Sign Museum in Cincinnati, and there's
Mhm.
one in Vegas. And there's a couple in LA, and so on. What's the relationship like between all of these museums? Do you compete for signs and things, or how does that work?
So that's a really good question, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that was one thing that I had written as a note that I wanted to say. So for the sign museums like the American Sign Museum, Ignite Sign Museum, and the Museum of Neon Art, they have all been extremely supportive, offering just as much advice and information as I requested. There is no sense of competition. This is we're feeding the same beast to show off these signs, and so It's a really great relationship. A lot of those relationships have been fostered through Neon Speaks. Randall, Ann, and Al put on Neon Speaks, and that's where a lot of these people have been able to come together to really celebrate neon and to help us succeed. My the Light Circus Neon Museum is different than the Neon Museum in Las Vegas in a couple different ways. First of all, their scope is entirely Las Vegas, and we realize that the story goes beyond Las Vegas, and so we have the entire state. Our exhibition philosophy is different. Although these signs came from outside, we really treat them as important historical objects that need to be preserved. So a lot of them will never go outside again because we want them to be around for hundreds of years. And then also, we are very proactive in our preservation. We don't wait for signs to come to us. We watch the news and we make sure that signs are not lost. So preservation is a proactive activity that you need to be watching. And so we are very vigilant to make sure that important signs are not lost.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, let's get back to the questions now. Stephanie Stuckey, who is the person who recruited you for tonight's presentation, she has a question. Stephanie, I have unmuted you if you want to ask the question yourself. Maybe I'll start it off. She asks, how do you know so much about neon? Are you self-taught, or where did you gain all this knowledge?
You ask it just right, Brian. Yeah.
You are, Stephanie.
Like, it's fascinating. Like, did you just figure this out yourself, or, how did you gain all this incredible knowledge? And thank you for doing this. This is fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. What I've learned about neon has just been immersing myself in neon. When I first started doing this, I didn't know anything. I really didn't know anything. And, the first sign that we tried to take down, I had no idea how heavy it was. A friend of mine and I, we almost died trying to preserve it. But it's just being completely immersed in this. So the more that we'd saved, that I would start to learn that it's a pretty basic technology, that it hasn't really changed in 100 years. You have the glass, you have the electrodes, the transformers, and that it's a lot simpler in certain ways than some people think. Learning how difficult it is to bend. I am not a bender, but I respect the heck out of people that are. And so it's really just been a matter of just learning by doing, figuring out, what does it take to preserve these? What do you need to actually to do this? And so, and I've also learned a lot from other people, through Neon Speaks. I've learned a lot from the people that have been brought together by that symposium. And they've been really cool about sharing the knowledge. That's one thing, is that this isn't a really guarded, group of people doing this, that they're excited about this preservation effort that a lot of people are doing. And so we want it to be bigger all over, because I can't preserve things all over the country, and they can't either. So, we kind of support each other in the efforts that we're doing regionally.
Okay, thank you. Paige Gomez asks, is the Carl sign from Reno in the hands of the Light Circus now?
It is not. When the sign it was damaged by the wind, and it was kind of hanging precariously on its perch, I contacted the owners, and they mentioned, I discussed with them, if it wasn't going to go back up, that we would love to preserve it. And the sign came down, and we actually haven't heard from the owners. I need to check back with them, but hopefully it hasn't been destroyed, because we think that sign's important to save.
Okay, we have a question. When will the museum open? Do we have an ETA?
Well, we have a it's very loose, because we didn't even get, the carpet installed until like right around Christmas. And so when I was going through the slides, I realized how much we've accomplished in a relatively short amount of time. So there's a major bowling tournament that starts in March, and so we are doing everything we can, moving heaven and earth to try and make sure that we are open and functioning by that date. And so if there were 8 days a week, I would be working that eighth day too. So
No doubt.
but it's fun. I mean, it's like, I'm not burned out and I'm excited because the closer we get, I'm so excited to share this with people because I really think this will be a happy place
Yes.
for people to visit.
I'll just give you the last question that we have time for. And Shelley Morris asks, which sign in your collection came from the furthest away?
That would be Piccolo's from Omaha. And then the second furthest would be, we have one from Tijuana called Las Cuatro Reinas, the Four Queens. So that one, that's our only international sign.
Okay. What when you were teaching, you're teaching grade 6 or grade 5, so that's elementary school. It wasn't a particular subject. You just had the class for everything, right?
Oh, I taught math. I
Oh,
moved
math.
in
Okay.
language arts and then I finished off teaching math, but I'm not doing that anymore now that the sole focus is the Light Circus Neon Museum.
So can you can somehow make ends meet or put bread on the table and working full time at the museum?
Well, I've had some loans from my father, and so and so we're just getting by until we open. And so it's a sacrifice, but I think that it's going to be worth it. I think that the business is something. This is what I'm meant to do, and I'm excited to run this museum, and I'm excited to share it. And um, I think that it will be successful because I think it's a genuine, authentic uh, project that is, just homegrown and means something to Reno, to Nevada, and also, the entire country. I think neon is an important part of our cultural heritage. So
Well, that is it's just such an inspiring story. It's absolutely wonderful. So I'd like to thank you again, Will, for coming to tell us about it, and also for our audience. And we had a very good audience tonight to tune in and take some of your afternoon and evening to listen. Just before we go, I'd like to remind everybody about next month, when on Wednesday, February the 11th, at our usual time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific, Christine and Pete will discuss the history of squished pennies, their collaborative art project, the Squished Penny Museum, and the future of squishing. Now, SCA members will be receiving the relevant details and registration link for the January talk by email, and others can register through the SCA website directly. Now, thank you again for spending some time with us. If you're not a member of the SCA, you will get an email either this evening or sometime tomorrow inviting you to join the SCA and enjoy all the benefits of membership. And keep in mind, everyone, that the recording of this presentation will be available on the SCA's website probably tomorrow. And anybody is welcome to look at it, to view it with no charge. Just go to our website, www.sca-roadside.org, and click recordings, and you'll see it there. So if somebody wanted to see it, but they missed it or missed some portion of it, then it's available. So look forward to seeing everybody next week. And sorry, not next week, next month, same time, same place. Are there any last words, Will?
I'm just thankful to have been able to present to you today, and I hope that you will all be able to come to the museum once it's open. I do not think you'll be disappointed, and it's a labor of love, but I can't wait to share it with you all. So I hope to see you there.
Okay, now just before we go, Lawrence Johnson has his hand up. So I'm going to, if I can find him here. Oh, Lawrence, I don't see you on our participant list. But there we go, ask to unmute. So you're unmuted now, Lawrence, if you want to say something. Lawrence, I don't know if you can hear us.
It looks like he's still muted.
Well, yeah, he's still muted, but he has the ability to
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Right. Will, I'm in Melbourne, Australia, and I made a feature documentary in 2016 called Neon, which has been screened in the US a little bit. And I just
Of
want to say
course.
it's a fabulous presentation. And if you want to screen it at your museum sometime for free as a fundraiser or something, we can be in touch.
Of course, I know your film. I love it. I've watched it at the Roxy Theater for Neon Speaks. It's wonderful, and I know that you've been very generous to share it with others for things like fundraising. And so, I was actually meant to contact you at some point to ask you about that. So thank you so much for your generous offer. And I think it's a wonderful film, and it's important. And I think people. Our group will love it, and thank you.
Thank you. I love the images that I'd never seen, obviously, many of the images you presented today, but they're so fabulous and beautiful. And it's just fabulous that you're putting the time and energy in, to band everyone together to bring this to the public.
Yeah, but it's a collaborative thing, like the work that you've done and the work at like Neon Speaks, and it all builds on everything. Your film brought a lot of attention to this the effort of preserving this neon, and so this is all something that is built upon the effort of a lot of people and enthusiasm, and so it's all really exciting because it feels collaborative, and I feel supported, and it makes the work easier to do.
Yeah, and I like what you said about people sharing, just in terms of the other museums, that people are altruistic and it's not a competition and you all want to support each other instead of saving signs. And I know you need to wind up, so I might end my comment there, but thank you again so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Lawrence, from tuning in from, you said New Zealand that you were from, or
Melbourne, Australia.
Australia, yes. Thanks for tuning in from halfway around the world. It's I think somebody asked what's the sign that came from in your collection that came from furthest away. Well, I think, Lawrence, you're our viewer that came from furthest away. So congratulations. Anyways, with that, we'll wind it up. Again, thank you, Will, and thank everybody for watching. I will hope to see everybody again, same time, same place next month. And with that, I wish you a good night.